right, 3, 2, 1, here we are.
Hey guys!
Hey everybody!
It's Jenny
and Paul
with the Go Box and Bingo Artist Bar, streaming from Sherwood, Oregon. And it is a very nice night tonight. Went with the very nice day we had earlier.
It was a wonderful day.
It was wonderful. So in the meantime, between our last live stream and now, we've had a roof leak, and it seems like there was something else, but anyway.
A puppy.
Yeah, old Bill.
A puppy leak.
That. we got a new puppy, and wow, it's like having a newborn child again, and
Except for
that's been a long time since I've had a newborn child, and it's a lot of work, and I'm like right now doing the thing where I'm like, I'm never going to get a puppy ever again. I'm only ever going to get an older dog.
And babies don't bite.
Yeah, babies don't bite with really sharp teeth. But anyway, that's been the excitement in our household.
Yep.
Hopefully you guys had great holidays. It's crazy to think that our last live stream was holiday paintings. And in some ways it feels like that was a really long time ago, but we've had, all this political craziness along with getting the puppy, the roof leak, and all the other things. So
nobody wants to hear about
feels
the
like it's been a long time. Yeah, we won't mention that.
No.
Okay, so tonight we are painting Moonlit Peonies. That's not a good, it's very glary. There we go. Tilt it. Well, when we show it on the table here in a minute.
Wait, you want to go?
Yeah, we're going to go to the table. So this painting, I really like the way it came together. To be honest, I was having some artist block and did several paintings, which kind of has been a theme for me lately. So I was really happy with the way this turned out. I'm a big fan of flowers. I saw on our little questionnaire we sent out, a lot of you mentioned that you'd like to do more flowers. So that makes me really happy because it's a good time for me to learn too. I haven't done a huge amount of flower painting in my life, and it's something I would like to get better at.
I love painting flowers.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I just put together the painting with the black background, and then we paint all of this on top of it. So let's just go right to it. We want to get that canvas painted black right away so it can dry.
Well, and this is the kind of thing we can do while we chatter and talk.
Yeah. So you've got your standard 5 colors, and that's black, white, ruby, sapphire, and daffodil, otherwise known as red, blue, and yellow. Let's go ahead and grab our biggest brush to start. Go ahead and get it dampened up in your water cup. Boy, I've got a lot of brushes going on here. And blot it dry on your paper towel or whatever you got. So yeah, you want a cup of water, paper towel, or an old paint rag. Now, I like to get it nice and dry.
Is our camera crooked, or is everything on the desk crooked?
Oh, I don't know. I'll straighten it out here.
All right.
All right, everybody. Let's start way down here in this corner because that's where our flowers are going to start. Mm-hmm. So if we're starting the painting here, then it will dry quicker. So by the time we're up here, this will be getting closer to being dry.
And if you guys have any questions, I am watching the chat box, so don't be afraid to ask a question. There will be a little bit of a delay between when you type and when I see and respond. But don't be afraid to ask questions. That's why we do tutorials, is so we learn.
Or make comments.
Yeah, comments are good too.
Yeah.
But we only like positive comments.
Yeah, we had to delete a few trolls. It was actually kind of funny. I've got really thick skin now after 10 years of teaching on stage. You hear everything, and so, yeah, I, like on our YouTube, I got accused of copying somebody else who's an artist on YouTube, and I'm like, I've never even seen this person.
You weren't accused of copying, you were accused of being a wannabe.
Yes, being a wannabe of that person who I had to look up.
That's two different things entirely.
It was funny because this artist person that I was accused of copying, I looked her up, and
I'm pretty sure she copies us.
Has pink hair, and I had pink hair for about a hot second because it's just one of those things that it fades out immediately. It requires so much upkeep. But I thought, surely I'm not the only artist on YouTube surely this woman is not the only artist on YouTube with pink hair. I just thought that was really funny. But anyway, trolls aside, we are covering the canvas nicely with black.
Now we don't really want to go very thick with this black, right?
No, we want to
thick
keep
enough
it
to
pretty
cover.
thin, and your brush strokes can go any direction that you want. I usually will get the surface covered first, and then I'll paint the edges.
thanks so much for all of you who have responded to the survey.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback there because we've been it's been a year and a half of doing GoBox.
I think, I don't remember. We may have done a survey about 6 months in, I think.
Did we?
I think so.
But we always kind of welcome feedback because we don't know, are we painting the subjects people want to paint? Are we including enough of a certain style of art? All of that good stuff. I just realized we forgot to do a toast, so let's toast real quick. Let's toast to Tuesday.
Let's toast to Tuesday.
Cheers.
Why not? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Hopefully you guys have some sort of liquid courage or tea or
I think
something.
I think I want to start drinking tea while we teach.
Oh, okay. With whiskey in it?
No. No, not necessarily. It's just calming and soothing.
One of the things that I really liked hearing on the feedback survey was that many of you commented that you like the mix of our two styles, which is great because our two styles are so very different. Paul's more the classic landscape. I'm the one that's going to give you the swirls and stars and cosmic things. The very Starry Night sort of stuff. The animals.
That's something people want to see is more animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I love animal suggestions. I do a lot of birds. Obviously, most of you guys know I love owls completely. They're like my little spirit animal, I guess.
I feel like that light to your left is just a little too bright, so I'm going to tone it
Picky.
down just a
Well, the
bit.
paint is wet, so it's kind of glaring a little bit.
No, I understand.
So one of the things you guys can do when you're painting, when I paint at home, in fact, when I designed this peonies painting, I have a hairdryer nearby so I can turbo dry everything really fast so that I've got this inspiration in my head. I'm not going to wait for things to dry, so I'll turbo dry the canvas. In fact, I have one right next to me here that if I need to, I'll use it, but feel free to blast your canvas with the hairdryer. It only takes maybe about 30 seconds, and you've got it nice and dry enough to move on. So I will paint the edges of my canvas probably later, if I plan on doing anything with this painting. Paul and I were talking about selling or maybe we should gift our paintings we do on this.
Well, we talked about doing
live
it,
stream.
doing it as a giveaway.
Top commenter gets the gift of the live stream painting of the night.
So let us know if you like that idea.
Yeah. They're piling up here at our studio. They're slowly taking over. Just like they did at all of our other studio spaces. Oh, and another thing, while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'll just talk a little bit. At our Vingo studio, we've been doing Zoom classes that are live. You can participate in. You can have your camera off or on, just like kids are doing in school. And those are every Friday and Saturday. You will find those classes on vinegogh.com, and that's vinegogh.com. Our instructor, Annalise, teaches those. She's super rad. She's been working for us for 6 years, 7 years maybe?
6 or 7.
She's amazing artist. And so, yeah, you can do those anytime. And if she's not available to teach, it'll be either Paul or I.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. And we're also doing Zoom corporate events. We have had a lot of corporations need to do some sort of remote team building party. Those have been really fun. We've shipped art kits all the way across the United States for those. And they just join in at the right time and start it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this particular painting, we actually mixed together a lot of different peachy and pink tones. I'm just going to grab the painting really quick while this is drying. And these, the peonies they're sort of almost abstract because to do them realistic would take a little bit extra time. So these are like a quicker version. kind of abstract. I have them set up purposely so it's like the largest one is on the bottom, then the middle size, although these two are really close to each other in size, and then the small ones up here. So I actually have us start with the centers first, and we'll be doing that next. And then we build the flower around those, and we paint the stems later. So that's kind of fun. And then one of the things I'll talk about later is you can have, when we do paint the stems, peonies, sometimes two will grow on one stem. So you can do one stem for each flower, or you can do like this one. I think I have one flower on one stem, and then these two maybe are connected on the same. And then, of course, the little stars. And then I really wanted to do something with sort of winter berries. In fact, one of the paintings I did as a trial run was of cardinal with red winter berries. And I thought that one I really liked, but I felt like I wanted to go a different direction. I wanted to maybe get out of more of a wintry thing and do something a little more colorful and fun. And I'll show you guys Paul's painting, because it's right back here behind us.
You're doing aerobics and all kinds of stuff tonight.
I know. So this is coming up next week, next Tuesday. This is called New Year Rising. We thought perfect name for it. And it has a similar... It could almost go with the winter one that you did last time, but not really.
No, the colors are really different.
Yeah, they are, actually. It's just the subject. Sunset through the trees, although obviously no mountain on this one.
Well, I like to...
Surprised you didn't include a mountain. That's so different of you.
Well, if I included the mountain, it would have just been a reboot of the last month. But
very purple based.
I do like to carry elements from one month to the next, so it reinforces the techniques and the skills.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason. Sometimes you see some of mine, they might seem similar to the month before, but that's mostly so that I'm not like just pinging around all over the place. And
well, I think that trees and clouds are things that should be constantly practiced because they take a while to really get comfortable to where you're comfortable painting them. And so, the more fir trees and things of that sort you can do, the better. Let's put that back here.
I already, like, next month's painting, the one I'm working on, is going to have some elements from this one we're going to be doing next week. But it's going to be a totally different vibe. Yeah. So.
Sounds good.
I'm looking forward to that.
Your one that you're creating next?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've got mine in my head. It's been stored up in the noggin for a while, and I'm going to put it on canvas tomorrow. Kind of last minute sort of thing.
It's kind of the way we operate.
I actually always did best in school when I cram studied, like last minute.
Me too.
So that's life for me. Pay our taxes or file our taxes like the 11th hour.
Always.
So brushes, you guys might have this set, which I always keep beside me. These work every bit as wonderful as these. I really have no preference between the two. I think there's great things about both of them. So keep that in mind. You might have a different set than what I'm using. Mainly you just want a small, medium, and large. And the little brush on this one we'll use for stars and other details.
Yeah.
So this is pretty dry down in here, so I'm going to go ahead and get us going on mixing the flower center color, which you see right here. And we are just going to make a purple, but it's kind of more of a reddish toned purple. Let's use our medium size brush. Go ahead and dampen it up in the water and then blot it dry. And I'll just scrape. You don't need a whole lot of paint here, and it doesn't really matter how much you have on your brush for this. So when you've got sort of a reddish toned purple, kind of a wine color, I guess, I want to add just a speck of white to it. So we're not looking to turn it lavender. We still want it to look like a darker purple, but we are lightening it just a bit and adding some opacity to it. So when it gets painted over the black, it's not going to just get lost. No yawning, Paul. Can't yawn yet.
I had a busy day.
Last night we went to a friend's farm, and that ended up being, it was a day thing with some girlfriends, and then the husbands all joined later unexpectedly, and we got pizza, and we were there till really late.
It's not like we
we hadn't planned it out. We invited you all, but we hadn't planned it out until late. We were like, let's text Paul, and let's text so and so.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not like we just showed up out of the blue. We were invited.
Exactly. They didn't crash the party. So we are going to paint the centers of the flowers, which if you look at the original painting, they appear a lot smaller than they're going to be right now. And that's because we add petals around them. So these look a lot like when you're in like 10th grade biology and you're looking at amoebas through the microscope. That's what they're going to look like. So I just actually start down here, just to, you know, somewhere in this vicinity, a little blobby circle, like a disc shape, kind of actually looks more like a jelly bean. And I'm going to fill that in just by dabbing.
Now we got to stop at the drugstore on the way home so I can get some jelly beans.
Right? When I got Costco groceries yesterday, I almost got the big jelly bellies. I thought about it, and I thought, Paul would eat those so fast. Yeah, we can't have jelly beans in the house.
No, they don't.
I'd have to hide them from you. You'd have to do chores. Okay, if you mop the floor, you can have 20 jelly beans.
I'd be like, no, I'll just go to Walgreens and buy myself some.
Right. Okay, so the second one is about 2 inches up from this one. You can make maybe some sort of marker dot if you want. And again, same thing. Real similar size, maybe slightly smaller. Now this is if you want to place them where I placed them on the original, because you can totally put them in different spots. If you're more of a left alignment kind of person, you can have them go up from the left here. And then the last little one it's actually more than 2 inches up, and then it's closer to the center, maybe even a little further left of center. And it's smaller, but if you make it the same size, no big deal. We wrap it with lots of petals. Mine's mixing with black paint just a bit. I'm not going to worry about that. It's nothing that's alarming in any way. And I can always go back in a while when it's nice and dry and give it another coat of the purpley color if needed. So there we have placed out. Now I have 3. If you want to do 4, you want to have a nice full bouquet, you absolutely can. This is your painting. You can follow along with how I teach the technique, but you can place these wherever you want. And now I'm going to wash the brush and dry it off really good. And I can see, looking at my canvas, this whole area here is pretty dry, but you can see the glossy patches there that are slowly making their way towards dry. And black does tend to be one of the more fast drying colors I've noticed. All right, a little sip. Now let's talk flower petals. So the next color we mix will be white and ruby red and a little bit of daffodil. So white, red, and yellow. We want to use mainly white. We're going to make the palest peach ever. So let's use our medium brush, and you might have a flat brush, so you might be using this one. Let's scrape off some white. I'm going to plop it down here. Now these palettes are awesome. If you guys ever want to buy them from us, they're on our website, gobox.com, and they're literally 50 sheets of wax paper that you just roll up and tear off and be done with.
Be done with it.
Be done. And I like them better than paper plates because you have a lot more room.
And the paper plates tend to absorb.
They do sometimes. Okay, so let's go ahead and dot in a little bit of red. So we're going to make a real pale pink first.
Pale pink. And Kristen says she loves the word purpley.
Yeah, purpley is a good word.
That is a good word.
It's a Go Box word. I actually really like that too, purpley. Okay, so let's grab in a little bit of yellow, or dot in a little yellow. So you'll get a nice pale peachy tone, and you can adjust it as needed. You can make it more, you know, I didn't wash my brush real great last time, so I've got a little bit of blue coming out in there that I can see. You guys probably can't see it, but I could see it trying to sneak in there. All right, maybe I'll add a little more pink.
I'm kind of going for a bit of a coral color myself.
Well, special. Okay.
It's turning
You do
coral.
you. You do you, Paul.
I always do.
Okay, so somewhere in this vicinity, remember it's your painting. The painting is slightly abstract, so if you want to do something very different, you obviously can. And what we're going to do first is we're going to create, let me grab this. I need longer arms. I was born a
Want me to
T-Rex.
get you one of those like little claw grabber things?
It's totally. Like, I was born a T-Rex. Okay, so see how these petals kind of wrap around, but then on the edges they sort of go outward, and then down here too, there's a few rogue ones that are creating the bulk of the flower and the shape of the flower. And you can have fun with the way you use your brush. So I'll just do a couple practice strokes on here. You'll do light pressure, then heavy, and then light. So light, heavy, light. And if you're using a flat brush, it works great too. Light, heavy, light. Light, heavy, light. That's a really small brush. Actually, tempted to use that one. But I have a tendency to over detail stuff, so I will use a larger brush. Keep myself from doing that. Okay, so I'm going to start right here in the middle. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go around. And then this way too. Just go the opposite direction. And it's the purpley color is smearing in just a little bit, but I think that will add to it. It'll add some
depth.
Unintended shading.
I like it.
Yeah. So at first it looks kind of like we've given it angel wings. Very sweet. And let's do the next one. Or some kind of funky mustache. I like thinking of them as angel wings. And let's go ahead and do this one too. The black up in here, I can tell, is pretty gray, so I shouldn't have any issue with it turning gray. Although I said that and I can see, whoops, got a little black smeared in there. Well, this flower is just a little goth. That looks really funny. They look like... You could totally turn these into cartoon characters with like white googly
Looks
eyes.
like the bad guy from Sonic the Hedgehog.
You're right, yeah. I'm actually needing to mix a little more color. When you run out of color and you mix a new one, if it's a slightly different shade, that's like bonus. So having lots of different shades of colors on these is great.
I actually think that's one of the things, like, I love painting flowers, and which is weird. I don't seem like a flower painter kind of guy, but I love painting flowers, and the more variation in color you can get into the petals and stuff, it just makes it look better.
Yeah. All right, I'm just going to add some thicker paint now, starting with the first one, because these will have dried just enough that a second coat should be able to stick on there. And then down in here you can make some that sort of flare out just a bit, almost feathery the way they look. Wrapping around, I want to do that on both. We'll paint the little petals on the back side of the flower too, but I'm going to use a smaller brush for that. That one is determined to have gray in it.
Just can't fight it.
Yeah,
Just roll with it.
Exactly. So now that I've got the petals around the bottom edge of each, the centers are drying pretty good, so I can probably start overlapping some flower petals that go slightly overlap this side of the center. Let's go ahead and set our medium brush in the water or wash it off and set it aside. We will use it again soon. And let's pick up the little brush. Whatever smallest brush you have, so your little detail brush, if you're using the red set, you might have this one. If this one feels too small, because this one's pretty small, go to like your second smallest flat brush. But I have this one. I'm going to go ahead and dip it in the color I made. And then I'll just come around the back to start. So what we're seeing here are the back side, the very tip tops of the flower petals that wrap around the back side. So these ones are they're gonna lean this way, and then these others are gonna lean this way till they meet in the middle. And you can use this little brush, and if you feel like you want to detail the edges of some of these others, maybe make it a little more almost, I hate to say raggedy, so I'll say feathery. Feathery is probably the right word. Let's go ahead and do the back side of each of these, and then we'll overlap some petals on the front. Oh, hey. Yeah, that speaker you should probably turn off because that keeps happening during the day and it scares me. Whenever I go to wake up the computer, it makes this big loud popping noise. It scares me and the puppy.
Everything scares the puppy.
Yeah, right now everything scares the puppy.
Not really.
So just coming along the top edge here, giving it some fringe. It's okay if you overlap into the center of the flower just a bit. When I started the original painting, the centers were quite big, and they just gradually get smaller with each color and petal that I add. They look like fuzzy, something from a Dr. Seuss book, which I love. Man, I love Dr. Seuss artwork and the stories. So now what I want to do is, let's see, actually I'll show the picture. So this is the step we're on, and what we do now, I know it's so small to see, we're going to bring some up here in the front that overlap the center. And you can use this little brush, or if it feels better for you to use the medium brush. And you'll get, probably like I am, you'll get a little bit of wet purple paint dragging in there, but that's a good thing. Maybe as I get up to these smaller flowers like this one, I'll switch to my little brush. I'm using my medium size one right now. This gray, it's funny. There. There are actually some flowers that grow up, I want to say they're up like Mount Rainier area, and they have a certain name that I can never remember. I have to like Google it. But they look a lot like this. And people call them the Dr. Seuss flowers. So yeah, if you've got your phone, you can Google Mount Rainier Dr. Seuss flowers and see. I'm pretty positive it was Mount Rainier.
Sounds familiar. I saw Mount Rainier today.
Yeah, today was a nice clear day. Gosh, the Mount Hood looked amazing. I had to drive over to the UPS store, and there's one turn you make where it's like, oh, there it is in all its glory. And just, I always will try to like study the glaciers and how for shading, for doing mountain paintings. Now I can't stop. I think of it as a painting every single time. It's an illness. Okay, I'm going to wash this little brush and probably go back to the medium brush. And this is where we are going to, let's see, we're going to add more of the yellow, the daffodil, to our peach color. And we repeat the steps. So we're adding a more yellow toned peach
Dr.
to
Seuss
our
flowers.
colors. You found them? Yeah, there they are.
Yep.
Let's see. Let's click on that one and we'll put the phone over here. So they're a little, obviously a little different, but it's the general. See that? What does it say? What's it called? An Adventurous Life. The Dr. Seuss flowers. Yep. I'm glad my memory served me there. Okay, so whatever you have left of your peach, you might have to mix some more. It looks like I'm going to have to. Add some pink in there. And now about twice as much yellow. You want it to be pretty strongly different than what we put on there. So like you can see already that it's warming it up quite a bit. In person, I can tell, at least on our monitor, it doesn't show up as big of a difference as it does in person. But it is more of a golden toned peach. Just adding more flower petals, but not covering up everything that was already put on there. So we're just adding to it, adding some more tones. And I'll go ahead and go around the back. I'm just using the very tip of my medium brush, but if you feel more comfortable using the small brush, definitely do that. Remember, it's okay to reduce the center size of the flower because we made it bigger than we needed purposely. And then I will add the ones in the front. I can see this is a little bit too wet right now, so I'm just going to travel up here and work on the second flower before I do that. And the one thing that you can do is occasionally make a longer petal that sort of curves and then mix in some shorter ones. I always feel like peonies look like they have really ruffly.
Some do, yeah.
Ruffly flower petals. These ones are feathery.
Some are feathery too. There's different varieties. There's some that are more closer to like a rose type of petal. And
yeah. Pretty cool.
we have a nice big one in the front yard.
It's like a hot pink
Yeah.
color. Yeah, I was wondering when I was painting these what different colors peonies come in.
Mostly reds and pinks as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. Didn't we have one in the backyard, or do we still?
We do, yeah.
Is it a lighter pink?
It's not as... it doesn't produce as well as the one in the front yard.
Front yard, maybe it's just better light.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'll go back to this one and probably use the littler brush, the medium size, or I'm sorry, the smallest brush. And look, I've got a lot of paint on my brush, so I'm just going to use it and add some of these smaller fringy petals that go around here. You can have a lot of paint on your brush while you're doing these. Texture is good for these. There are certain paintings where we instruct you to not use a lot of paint, but for this one, texture is very good to have. So what we're aiming for is, it's kind of like we're having a sort of 3/4 view of the flower, like slightly top view. Which is why, and these end up being sort of an oval disc shape. This flower just really wants some gray petals over here. But, well, we'll just let it do its own thing. So now we're going to wash the brush and we're going to make an actual pink without any yellow in it. So medium brush. If you have extra paint on here, put it down on your flowers here and there. And we want to clean it off pretty good. Oh, you're doing more of a hot pink.
I'm just
pink peonies.
Painting peonies the way I see them.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and mix a plain old pink. Now this one, let's see if I can pull over. Yeah, let me pull over this. Here's the color. You can see it's pretty rosy. That's going to turn these really pale peachy flowers into having more of a pink. Now if you want a darker pink here, you absolutely can do it. We put white highlights on these later, so that's going to lighten them up a bit anyways. So if you went with a darker pink, it would be completely fine. Okay, let me pull my palette over here and I'll scrape off a little white, plop it down next to the red, and then I'm just going to mix until I have, it's almost like a bubblegum pink, I guess. If you feel like you want to put some yellow, oops, I'm off screen. If you feel like you want to put some yellow in there, you can. And I'll add this to these. Just little bits. And the paint is still, some of it's still pretty wet. So you'll know right away it feels funny and it doesn't want to stick. So in that case, what I'll do is I skip over and work on a spot that looks maybe a little more dry. And it's a good thing because it prevents me from completely covering, on accident, completely covering all of the nice peach color that we were working on.
What part are you working on right now? Oh,
Just adding more petals.
I gotcha.
Now, if you don't like the feathery look and you'd rather have more of a rounder look, you could, in essence, come in and do some more rounded edges out here.
That's kind of what I've done.
Yeah, it just depends on what you like.
If you want to show.
Show yours?
Yeah, so people can see what you're talking about.
Okay.
Not like, oh, I need the credit for it.
Paul really wants you guys to see his. There. So Paul's doing more of the rounded...
kind of looks like sea anemones at this point.
Sea anemones, yeah. More rounded, flowery, like the way it's. I want to say it without like. It kind of reminds me of the way you learn how to draw flowers. You know, you do those rounded petals.
Yeah.
But it looks cool. It's actually yours is almost like tattoo art.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, if you don't like these like little feathery, spiky things, and you want more of a rounded petal, just literally use your pink and round out the edges. I'm just gonna do it on this one because I like some of this feathery stuff. Remember, Dr. Seuss. So I'm just repeating the process of everything we've been doing with the pink. Making sure to leave bits of the peachy. And then if you need to add a few little dots of the pink in these flower petals that sort of wrap into the middle. You could do that. These kind of remind me of flowers that have just opened. So they still have that almost like everything's sort of held in. And now they're looking good. We want them to dry a bit. I see some speckles that I've gotten that have just kind of flipped off the brush from me bending and manipulating the brush. They actually will be fine because I'm going to put stars in the background, and you can barely see that they're slightly peach and pink. But I think, you know, that's kind of cool. Sometimes when you look at a starry sky, you do see different tones in the stars. Sometimes you see reddish stars, and sometimes they're white, and sometimes they're sort of yellowish. So we are here. We've added our pink. Now we're going to go to step 5, and we're going to paint the green stem. So this painting goes pretty fast compared to some of the others we've done. I thought that'd be nice and refreshing. Let's go ahead and make sure you wash your middle-sized brush. We want to start off with a nice clean brush. I'm going to push this aside while I mix. So we're going to mix equal parts of sapphire and daffodil and see what kind of green that gets us. I'm running out of room here. Usually it starts off with a very teal green. So then what I do is, it's too blue. It's a really pretty color. I love this color, but it's a little too blue, so I'm going to scrape off about the same amount of yellow I put in there to begin with. And you'll notice it'll gradually start turning green. And I'm going to add more yellow. So sometimes I like to start off with equal parts and then just tweak the color here and there.
Why are you such a tweaker?
I'm such a tweaker. You don't have to have a solid mix either. If you have it sort of marbled like that, where you've got swirls of dark with the lighter color, I think that when you paint something from nature, like a tree or a plant stem, having the different tones of color streaking in there is a good thing. We want that. Okay, let's set this aside. We will mix more yellow with this for a highlight color in a little while. Yeah. Where am I going with this? Grab this painting. So it is kind of funny to be painting the stems behind everything. So you kind of have to pay attention to where they're lined up. And where you start, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember where I started with this one. Knowing the way I work, I probably just started with this one. And I'm going to take and go find the middle down here. Now you can make a stem that is sort of bending off, or like I think on the original it actually comes down and sort of does this angle thing. I'm just going to go with what feels right for this. So I'm using my littler brush, smallest one. And this stem here, it's probably about 1/4 inch wide in total. And it just goes off the bottom of the canvas. You want it to be the same width from here to here, so it doesn't have to get thinner down here at the bottom at all. And if needed, we can touch up paint petals around this. So if you end up with some funky stuff going on here where the green and pink meet, we can touch that up, no problem. Very easy. And now for this stem, I always like them to start in the middle of the flower, because that's how they are constructed. And again, same thing. There's kind of a funky spot here where the green meets the flower petal. And honestly, when I add my white highlights to this flower petal, I'll just take a little white highlight and go over the edge of that green once it's dry. And then it will totally work fine. Okay, so these could be growing off the same stem, depending on how they line up. I'm not going to make the bottom stem of this one yet. I want to do this one first and then decide where I'm going to go from there. So I'll go to the middle of the flower and I'm going to slightly bend this one. This one, because it's a smaller flower, it doesn't have to be as wide as the stem, but mine usually ends up being that way. And then I want this one to come out between these two flowers. So what you would do is you kind of hover your brush or your finger so that it's lined up. And then I would decide which one of these flowers gets a second stem down here. Or you could have all three growing on a single stem. I don't really know if there's a limit.
Yeah, they don't really.
Is there a limit? I've seen where two grow off of one stem.
Yeah.
At least in photos. So I want to decide here, do I want this one to come down? So I think if this one came down, it's going to get too close to this because they are like almost perfectly lined up. So my other stem I want to be part of this flower. And again, same thing, it's going to come really close to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over here, and this other stem is going to come down and come off this way. And when we add leaves, it will make more sense. But yeah, you can clearly see what stem goes to what flower. Let's have a look at the original real quick, so it's been a little bit since I've shown it. So you can see, let's see, I had this stem go all the way, I think that's what this is. And then this one came through. I probably planned on these two being connected. So it's a little reverse of what I did just now. And the leaves are like elongated almond shape. So it's like if you were to take an almond and just stretch it. They're pretty easy to paint. And I have them, they're coming out of the top, I'm sorry, they're coming out of the bottom edge of the flower here. Same thing here. And then this one's coming off the stem. You can plan these out however you like. So let's see. I could do one that comes off the stem up here. I could do one that comes off the stem down here. I could make leaves that come out of like they're real close to the bottom of the flower. Or you can copy exactly what I'm gonna do. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna go up here, start at the top one. I'll just make an elongated almond shape right here and fill that in. And I'm gonna do another one that's up here. Again, don't worry about overlapping a tiny bit, overlapping your flower petals. We will make that all work towards the end. So I could leave just 2 on there. I know I did 3 on the original. I think let's see, maybe I will do a 3rd here. I'm a big fan of 3s. Then I have a couple coming out of this flower way over here because it looks like I didn't want to cover up stems. That's probably what I was thinking. It's so funny to revisit and think, what was I thinking? It was actually not all that long ago that I designed this painting, but when you go to teach it, it's been just enough time to kind of not remember what you were thinking on everything. Especially if you have music on, you're totally in the art moment. And I'll do another one right here that goes behind this big flower. I love bright flowers on a black background. I think that's just such a cool look. I was telling Paul yesterday that one of the flowers I want to paint is like a water iris because I love purple flowers. So maybe that'll be an upcoming painting. So I'm just going to make one that goes off the canvas. So this is a larger one attached to the larger flower down here. I pretty much copied the layout of where I put them on the original. I tend to like to do that and not go too far off the beaten path when I'm teaching something that you guys already have like printouts of, so that it's not like, hey, I'm going to completely change everything up for you guys. Just try and keep up, okay? So yeah, I try to.
Are you making fun of me right now?
Yeah, actually, I'm making fun of you a little bit. You actually don't do it on the videos, but you do it in class.
Oh, that's different.
I do that
got people
too, though.
right in front of me.
In class, people love it. Because you'll be like, sometimes we're teaching other artists paintings, and we'll be like, I've always wondered what this painting would look like if da-da-da. And we'll do it, and it's not like a huge change. It's just enough to where like people can see, here's the original. If you want to do it that way, here's how you do it that way. Or if you want to do this, let me show you this. So, cool. Okay, I think next we actually add more brighter yellow highlights. Let me see. Da-da-da-da. Yes, we do. We're going to add highlights to the stems and the leaves with the small brush. So we're going to take and mix daffodil into this and make a really like an avocado green. So it's a lot more pale, kind of limey, key lime, avocado. Two fruits that are completely different colors, really. And I'm going to go along the left side of each stem first as a highlight. If it doesn't stick because your base color of paint's still a little too wet, then you can give a quick pause to the video, hair dry it real quick if you want, and then come back, or you can go back and work on your flowers just a bit. I think mine is just dry enough. There's a couple that are questionable. Will it stick here? So there, liven that up so it's not just one solid plain green. We've got light green on the left with the darker green popping through on the right side. So we've got a highlight and a shadow. And let's go ahead and get since all the highlights are on the left, I want the highlights on the leaves to also be on the left because we've established our light source here. Our light source is somewhere up here, probably the moon, and it's highlighting the left edge of each of these flowers or petals. Sorry, leaves and stems. And this one's kind of going to be in shadow for the most part. I might put a little highlight there.
Wake up, computer.
This computer here is so slow. We just bought a new one. We just have to hook it up. The studio got a Christmas present. And then this leaf, actually, let me go back to this one. This one gets a little highlight too. This is something that you can go back and you can do a second coat if it just looks a little janky and needs more. And I'm going to do a highlight along the top edge of this one. It's not sticking very well because this leaf was just not quite ready to get another coat of wet paint. So that's something I'll probably end up going back to. I'm going to wash the brush. What we're going to do now is we're going to paint on, grab this again, the little yellow centers, which are so easy. They're just little dots. I didn't do the handle thing of the brush like we normally do. I used the bristle end, and then on some of these I just sort of flicked upward to give them a little more, especially these ones in the back. Just looking at different pictures of peonies, that's just what I decided to do. And it's just plain daffodil, so no white or anything mixed with that. I'm going to put my middle brush in the water because it's just sitting there drying with green paint on it, which is not good. And yes, just plain daffodil paint. Make sure this brush is clean. Sometimes I'll go ahead and just sort of pinch and twist the tip of the bristles to get it back to a point. And I'll dip it in the yellow and go ahead and just dot it on randomly all over the flower center. You could just cover it with dots. I was showing you on the other one, I just sort of did this little flicking thing So I took the dot and flicked it upward. So I have dots and then a couple like spiky looking. Whatever these things are called. I was trying to think of the scientific name.
Aren't they stamen?
I don't know. I don't want to say it and be completely wrong.
I'll look it up.
Okay, Mr. Google. Now, you can do these in a different color if you want. You could totally be completely abstract with your flowers. I actually, while I was painting this and designing it, I thought about doing a blue one.
Well, glory be, I was right.
Stamen. These are stamen.
I guess AP biology paid off.
Did you have AP biology?
Yeah.
Wow. I had biology right before lunch, and the smell of formaldehyde, I'd go to lunch and I'd just be like, oh, I don't want to eat anything. And there were some interesting things in biology class, but I was happy to move on out of that class when it was over. My teacher also had 2 cockatiels that they just lived in the classroom. And they would just randomly fly across the room and poop on the students. Like one of my friends got poop right down his cheek. I felt so bad. But of course everybody laughed because we're in 10th grade. But yeah, memories. I just remembered that randomly. How funny. I haven't thought about that in years. He was a really older guy, though. He actually fought in the Korean War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, he had a lot of cool stories. And then pooping birds. I think what we want to do now is let this dry really good. And we'll work on the stars. And then we'll finish up our flowers. We'll paint the little winter berries on spring flowers. Why not?
Sure.
It's our world. We designed it. So on the stars, those of you who have done stars with us before, you know how we do it. We use the handle end of the littlest brush.
This is how we do it.
This is how we do it. This is how we do it. Okay. And then I have a few of these that I soften up to look like glowing stars. I'm going to show those first before I go crazy with little dots all over. Because we probably want to do those ones first. And it just works out better that way so you're not like smearing wet stars behind these. So I'm going to take and dip my brush handle in the white paint. I poke a little dot. Then I use my finger and really lightly, like the lightest pressure, whisper thin pressure, swirl it into a little glowing orb. And then I'm going to put a dot, a pure white dot right back in the center. So we'll do it again and again. Dot, super light, light pressure. And then dot. Sometimes you might have to redip it in paint to get that nice bright white dot in there. Dot, smudge it, dot. It's kind of cool to have them end up different sizes. Most of mine usually end up being about the same size. It just depends on how much paint you use to start. So if I just did a tiny speck of paint, then you can see I get a lot smaller orb. And I would say I probably have, looking at the original, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I have like 9-ish. You can do as many as you like, or don't do them at all. It's up to you. It's definitely something that takes a lot of practice. I know in the studio, sometimes students would struggle with the stars ending up too opaque to where they looked like those winter berries we're going to paint on. And the trick is to use, like if you press really hard, if I press really hard, then it ends up being more of an opaque dot. But if I use really, now I wrecked it. If I use really super light pressure, then you get more of that, the glowing edge around it. So yeah, what I figured in class was students were pressing a little bit too hard. Okay, that's probably a decent amount. I don't know how many I have. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have exactly 9. Gee, I'm good. Okay, so now I want to just do white dots. And as your brush handle runs out of paint, these little stars little dots get smaller and smaller, which is what we want. It's creating a random pattern for us without us having to think about it too much. Or random sizing. Speaking of pattern, if you end up doing what 99% of us do and you end up with like a polka dot pattern because you've placed every single star exactly half an inch apart, it's easy to fix. You just go in and find a star and like cluster a bunch around it. And then move on and cluster a bunch together. And then move on. Oops. This one didn't turn out too good. The nice thing about having this black background is once these stars dry, if you have any that turn out funky, well, it's so easy to fix. You just paint black right over it and start again. Look, I've got a funky one here. And make sure you get some in between the stems and leaves. You don't want to miss those areas because we would see stars through them, in between them. Dotty dot dot, lots of dots. There. I think I have more. Yep, I do. I have more than what's on my original. Very typical of me. And looking at while the stars are drying, looking at my flowers, these leaves are probably ready. If you needed to go back and have the highlight show up more because maybe your paint was still a little bit too wet when you painted them on originally. Now's a good time to do that. Now it shows up pretty good. I could even make it more yellow. So we talked about doing a date night painting for next month, but then we thought a lot of you guys, I know, you just do your paint box on your own rather than wrestle someone else into it. And so we thought, well, we'll do our single individual paintings. Maybe they'll coordinate. I don't know. I don't know if you told me what you're painting.
No, I haven't told you.
Okay. All right.
It's a secret.
But I think we should do a date night kit that people can get online if they want.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
People are always asking for date night paintings, where that basically it's two canvases.
It's a diptych.
A diptych, two canvases that bump up to each other and one whole landscape or whatever goes across the two canvases.
We've got a couple on the site.
We've got a couple on the site, but we need to add more. We've got some really good ones that we used to run in the studio that would be great to add to the date night. Not until our studio reopens. Okay, so we've got the highlights on the stems and leaves. That's something you can always go back and work on adding more. The other thing you could do is you could add more of an extreme shadow. Like you could take this original green we made and you could mix a tiny dot of black with it so it's more of an army green. So you deepen the color and have a more extreme change between the highlight and shadow. You could use your tiny brush, like later on, maybe another day, use your tiny brush and paint little veins in the flower leaves. I would say like maybe a pale yellowy, either yellow or this light green but lighter. So options. What I want to do now is I'm going to add the white highlights to the pink petals of the flower, pink and whatever the base, the pink flowers. I'm not just pink. I mean, we've got peach in there too. Brush wise, I'm going to, I'm probably going to use my middle size brush. So clean it off, dry it off, and white paint. Now earlier I was telling you if you have any of these spots where the green stem bumps up against the flower petal and looks funny, like it needs to look like the flower's over the top of the stem, you can use your white highlight to do that, just almost like you're creating a separate petal. So I'm using the same technique. You can try using your littlest brush if these feel a little too big and they're kind of taking out your nice pink and peach colors you've already put on there. Let's see what the little brush does. Either way, honestly, either way. I'll keep this one handy, but I think I'm gonna use my little brush. Now, the other thing you can do is sometimes we're looking at like a ruffled edge of a flower petal. So you could even make these a little bit ruffly by how you move your brush. But look at that, it adds such a cool effect here. You've suddenly got something that looks a lot more three-dimensional just by adding tiny bits of white. So I love that. I think that's such a cool thing with painting, how you can take something and make it three-dimensional. Just with highlight and shadow. Make sure you get a few of these middle guys too, but try not to overlap into the yellow because most of us probably have wet paint there. I'm using much less white than I did any of the other colors. And there, I'm done with the first one. As I continue painting on it. When I looked on the monitor, I saw a few spots. It's funny looking at it on the monitor because it's like stepping back, like which is what you should do. Step back from your painting every once in a while. But look at the transformation between these two. Suddenly, this one looks a lot more fancy, and this one looked good originally. Like if you hadn't seen this, you'd probably be okay with this. But now it feels like we're gonna kick all of these up a notch, because if we don't, it won't look as good. Yeah, this is one of those paintings where the highlights are kind of like the ooh-ah moment.
For sure. Ooh.
Ooh. Ah. So one thing I would recommend, and I'm saying it because I noticed that I'm doing it, you can notice each of these highlights are the same size. So like it's like I've just done the same scooping motion without changing the length of the highlight. So what I would do is maybe occasionally make one that's a little longer or shorter, just to break it up a little bit. It's kind of like the star pattern I was talking about. Our brains just automatically want to do that. We search for patterns. We like patterns. Patterns are comfortable. Speaking of patterns, there's like an M.C. Escher documentary or something coming out. I saw a trailer for it. And, you know, he never considered himself an artist. He considered himself a mathematician.
That makes sense.
When I heard him say that, or the quote on the trailer for the movie, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes sense as to why in algebra class in 7th grade, our teacher did this whole unit on MC Escher. And obviously, I don't really remember. That's been a long time ago. I don't really remember what she was saying about it. But now I'm like, oh, duh, math, MC Escher. Okay, that's why she did it. She was one of those teachers that she was I suppose 7th graders probably just drive you crazy as a teacher. But I remember one time I was passing a note to a friend. I don't even remember what the note says, but she came and grabbed it and then she read it to the class. It wasn't anything even remotely bad. It was probably like, what are you doing for lunch or whatever. But it's always one of those things I think about. It's like, that was mean. She read my note. And it was like the shy kid. So of course it was so much worse.
Like, notes, don't you know this is how we communicate?
One day I'm going to have a cell phone. And I'll show you. Okay, yeah, they look great. I really like them. It's a little bit different than the one I did originally. I feel like these are really ruffly by comparison. Let me grab it. Definitely the same flower, but the brush strokes here, I didn't do so many squiggly type. So I don't know which one I kind of like this, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I spent so much time doing the feathery ones and having the mix of these more ruffled textured brush strokes kind of gives it a cool effect. Okay.
Ready? Okay.
Ready? Okay. So now we're going to paint the stems in. These guys. Wow, these turned out really blue on the printout, at least in person. And basically they're long, white, thin, branchy things that have multitudes of branches at the ends of them, and that's where we paint the berries. They're really easy to do. You want to do them with your smallest brush. I'm going to wash this middle brush and set it aside. And this will be the last step of our painting before signing it. It's just like, so you know, Paul, I don't know if you're going to put these on.
Yeah, I will. I'm not that as far behind as you think.
I didn't think you were behind. I was just making sure that you knew. Okay, so it works really good if you have, because this brush is so small, we have so few bristles, it works really good to have a bit of water mixed in with the white paint. So I'm going to scrape some paint over to the side and kind of mix it around to wake it back up. And I'll grab a couple dots of water. Now the water is sort of grayish. That's okay. It's still going to look white when you paint this paint across your canvas. I'm going to thin it out to like the consistency of, like heavy cream is what I use a lot. So it's not so thin that it's going to completely drip down your canvas, like if you had your canvas on an easel. But it's not super thick either. Okay, and on my brush, when I mix it, I end up with a big glob of paint on there. So I don't want to start something so delicate with a big glob of paint on the brush. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll set my brush down and I'll pull and spin. So that helps knock off excess paint. The other thing you can do is you can just do it on your paper towel and then just re-dip the tip of the bristles in that fresh paint. And I'm going to start, let's see, let's just do one right here. This is probably how I did it, just knowing the way my brain goes. I'm just going to have it come out here and come up. It feels crazy because look what we just did. Well, we did this beautiful painting and what the heck? Because it looks like a toothpick sticking out of my flower. But it'll come together, I promise. And then I'm going to branch off to the side. You'll use very light, delicate pressure here. So the lighter your pressure, the thinner your little branches are going to be. And we want them to be pretty thin. And then what I'm going to do, so I've got my base like Y shape. We treat this like a deciduous tree, for those of you who have painted deciduous trees with us. I just continually add more branches or Y shapes. Whatever helps you visualize it. Branch off of those too. They can go right through a star, don't worry about that. That's probably a decent amount. And then when I go to add the berries, I did this when I designed it. I looked and I checked, do I have enough branches? Does it feel like there's too few berries on this one? And I added more if needed, more branches. So now what I want to do is I want to bring this down and off the bottom of the canvas. So I will do the thing where we sort of float over, and then it's going to kind of go along the side of this. It can be slightly bendy. And then same thing, float over your flower, and then it's going to come out here. So the branching is all done at the very top of this little winterberry plant. And then for this one, I actually am going to go from the bottom up. And I'll start down here. It looks like I have it so it's like growing out of one branch. So these join together. And then I'm going to float across here. This is going to come up. And I'm going to go all the way up till I get to that flower. And then float across. And it's going to go to here. So we've got a really long toothpick sticking through these. And now we're going to make it pretty, because it's not super pretty right now, the way it looks. Let's go ahead and add a little branch out here. And then you can add branches off of it and off of that one. The more branches you add, the more berries you're going to be able to add. And the berries, they just add that kind of fairy sparkle to this. We all need a little fairy sparkle, especially you, Paul.
I do.
And let's see, I'll do another branch right here. You do kind of just have to go for it, like I'm doing. If you try too hard to plan it out, it can, sometimes you get so nervous when you go to paint it that it appears like you're nervous on your painting. And then the other thing that helps, I've done this a lot of times in different videos where, in a class at the studio, where you pull towards you. Some people have better luck pulling towards them. I know when I do henna or like cake decorating, that kind of thing, I do much better pulling towards me. There. This looks actually very pretty on its own without the berries. The berries just sort of add an extra little sparkle. And so you decide if you want to add berries or not. If you want to put more branches, you know, further down. This one I have quite a few coming out the side. I just, because it's so long, it felt like it was needed. If you need to touch up like the edge of the flower with the white where these sort of spear through, you can. But I'm just going to go through and paint little white circles. These are pretty much all about the same size. You can do some that, I'm looking at the original right in front of me. I did do maybe one or two that are just kind of small, but really for the most part, like 95% of them are the same size. And sometimes you're going to paint right over a star, just like I've done several times here. For me, I think some of the flowers that are the hardest to paint are like roses. Because they're kind of like, they have this certain structure to them. I love painting sunflowers. But I feel like I've done so many sunflower paintings over the years at Van Gogh. Mm-hmm. All the Van Gogh sunflower paintings we did.
You know, his original sunflower painting is actually his most recognized piece of work.
The one that has like the pale yellowy beige background, because he has more than one.
Yeah. But like I think of like Starry Night, but most people think of sunflowers first.
Huh. He also did the irises.
Yeah.
His style was
He also
so
did
unique.
the almond flowers.
Oh yeah, I love that one. I'm actually going to flip this over to get a little closer. That might be one that we could replicate. That'd be kind of fun. I did do it once, one of the first years in business. I think the first year in business, we did the Van Gogh almond blossoms as a replication. He's on the public domain because the artwork is so old.
I don't think he has any living relatives claiming rights to it either.
That you can, like, that's why you see, like, Starry Night mugs and Starry Night posters, because his artwork's on the public domain. But other artists, like, we looked into once doing, like, a Dali.
Well, Dali's not that old.
The melting clock, yeah. He's not on the public domain.
You know, so much of it just depends on, like, whether there's living family that has rights to it.
Yeah, because, like, the Salvador Dali, like, I looked into it, like, oh, you have to get permission from the Salvador Dali Foundation. I thought, yeah, they're probably not going to care. I mean, they're not going to they're not going to read an email from a little tiny paint studio in Portland, Oregon.
You know who's really notorious for keeping an eye out for that kind of stuff?
Who?
Bob Ross's family.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because technically the Bob Ross is a brand name.
Yeah, you can get Bob Ross certified.
Well, and like he has his products of paints and stuff like that. So, what was his son's name? Stephen?
I think so.
Yeah, he's in control of that all now.
Huh. Cool. Yeah. We talked about getting you Bob Ross certified once.
Yeah, we did.
But it was like you were going to have to go to, like, the Midwest for 2 weeks or something like that. We're like, oh, we can't really afford that right now. Okay, that is all. That is the painting. Unless you want to go back and add anything to it. I mean, there's lots of different things you can do. You can add more peonies if you like that, or an asteroid in the background.
Don't forget to sign it.
Shooting star. Yeah, sign your painting. I'm actually going to use that little brush that you're using.
Wait, it holds a lot of water.
It does?
Yeah.
Huh. What color do I want to use? I have some pink over here. Maybe I'll stir it in here. So I always just put my initials in one of the lower corners. Over black, because you can paint over it and start again if needed. That is it for tonight's painting.
Wow, that was like our fastest one ever.
Yeah, I knew it would be fast when I made it. And I hadn't planned it that way. I was just like, oh, this one came together nice and fast, and I really liked the look of it. So that worked out good. Let's go ahead and get yours over here.
So I did a totally different interpretation.
Yes, you do. You do that. There's Paul's. Look at the two together. How fun. Yeah, so you have like a lot of deeper pink and purple in there. And then obviously you're doing more of the individual detailed petals.
Yep.
Very nice. I like the stamen. Very good.
We did it. Yay.
We did it. Yeah. Super cool. I actually really like the darker pink.
So I felt, because I did more detailed petals, a little more time would have been good for me. Like, I felt like this area right here needed a little bit more finesse. Oh, but I really like how these upper two turned out. This one being so in the foreground got a little rose petally, actually.
It's funny how in the monitor, like, these look all super pale, but in person there's lots of different pinks and peaches going on there.
All right, let's go back to our faces.
Our faces. Are we ready?
Here we are.
Thank you, guys, for painting along with us.
Yeah.
Or watching. I hope you had fun. I know a lot of you guys watch the videos and then go paint afterwards, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Because then you get to hear it twice.
Yep, absolutely.
And if you're just stumbling across us, we have a subscription box. Comes out once a month, 2 projects every month with the live stream videos. And you get to follow along with us and also go your own path as you're
something we forgot to point out too, we do have a lot of first time users this month.
Nice. Yes, that's right, because a lot of people got subscription boxes for Christmas.
Yeah.
So welcome, you guys. Thank you for joining us, and I think that's super cool to see us expand. We've gone into Canada now. We've got a couple Canadian shipments. So hey, Canada people.
But what I wanted to point out is the paint that you receive in your first box is a 3-month supply, and then we renew that every 3 months for you. So
yeah, and then occasionally you'll get little bottles of paint.
Yeah,
those are the bonus colors that, like, say we're doing a painting, and we really want this turquoise color in there, so we'll include.
Yeah, this month we didn't do a supplemental color, but we did last month.
Yeah,
and we will.
And we will in February.
Next month. So outside of that,
if you want to support us in any way, we have Patreon and
coffee.
Yeah, you can do a one-time donation with coffee, and then Patreon. I don't know, is that a monthly thing?
You have choices. There's choices on there, and I'm gonna look at into. There's a new option for memberships on YouTube too, where you can just come up and go have a membership. And the memberships are they're not very expensive, but it's just we'll give you a shout out for supporting us and stuff like that. So
yeah. It's been fun. So we will see you guys next Tuesday night for New Year Rising. Paul's painting with all the beautiful trees and sunset. And hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week and into next week until we see you Tuesday.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Whoop.